This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Oil prices were steady on Thursday, after falling for 4 straight days as investors worried about the global demand outlook. But a decline in U.S. fuel inventories provided a floor. Brent crude futures gained 31 cents, or 0.41%, to $76.36 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures inched 18 cents up, or 0.25% to $71.80 at 10:31 GMT. So far this week, Brent has fallen 4.2% while WTI crude is down 6%. Prices plunged on Wednesday as revisions to jobs data in the United States added to concerns about crude demand after weak economic data out of China last week.
OPEC has received updated output compensation plans from Iraq and Kazakhstan, stating that they aim to make up for their overproduction in the first 7 months of this year by September 2025, the producer group said on Thursday. Iraq's cumulative overproduction between January and July was 1.4 million barrels per day, BPD, and Kazakhstan's was 699,000 barrels of oil per day, OPEC said.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
India overtook China as the world's biggest importer of Russian oil in July as Chinese refiners bought less because of lower profit margins from producing fuels, a comparison of import data showed. Russian crude made up a record 44% of India's overall imports last month, rising to a record 2.07 million barrels per day, BPD, 4.2% higher than in June and 12% more than a year ago, data on Indian shipments from trade and industry sources showed. That surpassed China's July oil imports from Russia of 1.76 million barrels of oil per day via pipelines and shipments, based on Chinese customs data.
U.S. crude stocks, gasoline and distillate inventories all fell by more than expected in the week ending August 16 as demand and exports rose, the Energy Information Administration, EIA, said on Wednesday. Crude inventories fell by 4.6 million barrels to 426 million barrels in the week ended August 16, the EIA said, compared with analysts' expectations in a Reuters poll for a 2.7 million barrel draw. Oil prices rose to session highs following the larger-than-anticipated decline in inventories, but eased shortly after on weaker U.S. economic data. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Aluminium prices hit their highest in 6 weeks on Thursday as fund buying returned after one-day pause, spurred by concern over tight supply. 3-month aluminium on the London Metal Exchange rose 1.1% to $2,513 a metric ton by 10:28 GMT, having touched $2,531 for its highest since July 9, breaking above the 100-day moving average at $2,496. Funds known as commodity trading advisors, which are largely driven by computer programs, resumed buying after aluminium registered a slight intraday gain on Wednesday, one trader said.
Dalian iron ore futures extended their climb on Thursday, aided by top consumer China's support for its property sector along with rising margins among steelmakers, although caution from the remaining fragile fundamentals capped gains. The most traded January iron ore contract on China's Dalian commodity exchange paired early gains to end daytime trade 0.41% higher at 730 yuan, $102.33 a metric ton, after climbing to as high as 747 yuan a ton earlier in the session. The contract is set to rise for a 4th consecutive session, and had rallied more than 4% on Wednesday.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Indonesia plans to implement biodiesel with a mandatory 40% blend of palm oil-based fuel from January 1 next year, a senior energy ministry official said on Thursday, lifting prices of the vegetable oil to a more than 2-week high. Indonesia currently uses B35, which has a 35% blend of palm oil-based biodiesel, and the government had previously said it would increase the blend to 40% next year without specifying a start date. There is no issue in terms of supply volume and other aspects, so we are ready for a mandatory implementation, Energy Ministry senior official Enia Listiani Dewey told Reuters.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.